about mask wearing. It looks like I'm preaching to the choir, but anyway, I said I agreed to read it. There's a public order, Executive Order 63, compliance. Governor Northam's Executive Order 63 states all individuals aged 10 and over shall, when entering, exiting, traveling through, and spending time inside public buildings, including schools, cover their mouth and nose with a face covering. Masks are required within state or local government buildings when accessed for the purpose of securing public services. Enforcement is overseen by the Virginia Department of Health, not the local government. If somebody were to issue a complaint with VDH regarding non-compliance by individuals in school buildings, it is possible a school closure could be imposed. Understandably, some folks have medical reasons for not wearing masks and would simply respond to VDH with their justifications. Please help us keep schools open for children by following Executive Order 63 until it is lifted or modified. And this is from the Rappahannock County Public School Administration. Is there any questions about that? Okay. So we have an agenda. And so the first, well, all of our members are here. Steph Ritter, Chris Bird, Alex Sharp, myself, Ron Makala, and Bill Tiekelman. The first item is to adopt the meeting agenda. Is there any additions or modifications requested?
Yes, I'd like to add under new business, basically just a discussion of the signage that is at Massey's Corner and has been in the news lately. I think it would be appropriate for the board to have a discussion on that item.
So is there any other requests? Okay, are you want to make that motion?
I'll make that as a motion.
There's a Bill seconded.
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? Anything? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're aye. I just was.
Just as a general discussion, oh, sorry. I just think it's a little premature before we have a complaint before us.
So this should be, maybe we're discussing it now. So in other words, you might not vote for it because of that?
Well, I would, as a general discussion, I might vote for it, but it's hard to do that without having a specific.
Well, what if we discuss whether we want to discuss it?
Okay.
How does that sound? And then if we choose to launch into it, we'll launch into it. How about that?
I didn't understand. Speaking in the microphone.
What if we discuss whether we want to discuss it when we get to it?
Great.
And if we choose to discuss it, we will. Because I think the relevant thing to me in this would be, do we really have a role in that? And I'm not sure that we do, but I'd be willing to discuss that.
If we want to discuss it as an agenda item, absolutely.
Is that
Okay. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
maybe I could hear a motion to that effect.
Yeah. I approve.
Do we need to vote on that other motion?
Yeah, I'll withdraw my second.
Okay. So do you want to make a motion to that effect? That we'll just discuss in general terms whether it applies and if so.
Yeah. I make a motion that the issue pertaining to the hay bales and the sign be explored and the discussion be focused on whether or not it's a correct time to be discussing specifics.
Is there a second to that?
I will second that.
Is there any further discussion?
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, any further discussion?
So what we are, is that mean it's going to be on the, we're putting it on the agenda now as as that type of discussion? Yes, basically that's what I was asking for, was just
Okay, but we may not,
discussion.
we may not actually be discussing the specific thing you're talking about. We may be discussing whether we should discuss it.
I guess we'll see where the discussion goes as
Okay.
it progresses.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I'm going to add that after the, well, at the very end,
Yeah, new business.
yeah. Okay. The minutes, okay, you'll be partially proud of me for this. I generated the January minutes. The July minutes were a little more complicated, and I didn't give myself enough time, so I'll just have to present them next time. If you would like to. They're very short. I can't lift my fingers. And there's more copies up here if anybody wishes
Thank you.
to see this. Okay, they're very short.
So this is not the, this is the RFC.
Oh, I'm sorry, here.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we table the minutes. Basically because there's information on here with financial figures and whatever, and that was
Okay,
many months ago.
that's fine, that's fine. Well,
And
anyway, you
so-
have a copy.
So, I mean, when minutes are put out, they need to be put out prior to the meeting so that the members can read over the minutes and digest them, and if there are any changes. And we don't have Ms. Matthews anymore, who is very good at making the certain corrections in the minutes or whatever. But no, without time to really just look them over and
That's fine.
and digest it. So
Does that
I
seem reasonable?
motion that
That's
we
fine.
table them.
No problem.
Okay, we'll table them. Okay, the next item is appropriately the discussion of the secretary position. And the last time, we didn't come up with a secretary, and I did my moderately mediocre job. But I'm willing to do it again for this meeting. But, you know, we do need to ultimately have someone taking minutes who's not trying to run the meeting. So,
I thought, is it on?
we,
We had agreed that somebody might be approached to be a paid secretary.
and I don't know if we've made any progress on that.
How would progress manifest itself?
I guess a contact being made of some sort.
It would seem that
I looked at.
it would seem that that would be something that we should at least
Who would be the most likely to take that on? Ron, would you be willing to take that on? Approaching somebody and come back to us?
This is new territory for us. I mean, we have money in the budget, to my knowledge, for an amount agreed upon by the previous secretary. And he was, I think, very generous in in what he was asking for. But I mean, for us to go out and hire a secretary, quite honestly, I mean, in the employment world or whatever, we have to sit down and develop a job description so she knows, or they know exactly what they're being paid to do. And then we have to figure out what's going to be an appropriate amount to pay them.
What about calling them a minute taker?
Excuse me?
A minute taker who would be paid $150
Well, and there
per
is
meeting?
somewhat more involved in that.
Well, we're talking about the clerk role, I think.
Okay, but it seemed if we, learning from Mr. Connick's situation, it seemed that he took in the notice of the upcoming appeals. He made sure that the advertising was done, and it was something more than just taking minutes, it seemed to me.
That's
And-
it.
And
then
I thought that he did a rather good job of it.
He did a very
and,
good job.
that this is something that we all benefited from and the public generally benefited from. And-
There are stipulations in the state code as to the responsibility of the secretary of a BZA. So it's not just a minute taker.
Would you agree to write up those stipulations and we'll put together a description of the secretary position?
No,
No.
I would do it with, should not be an individual responsibility. Someone else on the board, it's a subcommittee
Ron,
No,
wishes
to write up the description of the
Ron, I would be happy
job.
to work with you on that.
Okay,
And
Is that all right?
anybody else who wanted to be
Bill?
involved would be
Bill,
welcome.
you?
In the book I got here for the zoning, it's all described with the secretary's job.
Yeah, under the,
You just have to go, I think, through there and list those things. But there's things like the secretary has to notify the parties in the zoning administrator of our decisions, and there's a whole protocol regimen.
Okay. Well, we still need to.
Yeah, I think that this is wonderful. We can codify it, write it up.
that's part of the
and then-
process.
And
then-
look for willing operators.
Do we?
let's approve it.
And so the request or the complaint or whatever that was, if a complaint is made and it is not acted upon, I'm assuming that somebody could then bring that forward as a request and then we could rule on that. But I think absent something being officially brought forward to us, I don't see what our role would be. Ron, I know, or Bill or Ron.
My question would be then to the zoning administrator, because from information that I've been made aware of, there have been one, if not two, complaints in regards to the sign, and Ms. Ritter indicated to me that she had gotten a complaint, which she had forwarded to the zoning administrator.
As did I. I got one too.
And he got one. Okay, so that's, and that may have been from the same person. But we don't know. I mean, has the zoning office received any complaints?
Well, I forwarded the note that I got to Michelle. I don't know what qualifies as an official complaint, however. I suppose that may. Does that? Or what would be, how would official complaint be made?
The county administrator to give us information as regards to what, looking at the code and knowing from experience that a complaint basically can be as simple as a phone call to the zoning administrator saying that they feel that there's a problem with some, a certain situation or whatever, and they would like it looked into, and that constitutes a complaint.
I'd say a complaint has been made. I'm under the impression from What I did, I received a complaint forwarded to the zoning administrator, so I assume a complaint therefore has been made.
Okay, but we don't know what if that.
That's our job, is just to forward it to the zoning administrator. And wait and see what happens.
But, quite honestly, because, and it's happened in other situations, it says, as a board member, if you receive a complaint and you forward it through the proper channels or whatever, and you never hear anything after that, are you allowed to ask the question that what happened? I mean, it seemed like someone filed a complaint and, no action was ever taken. And
Well, perhaps you could take up the matter as a private citizen. I mean, I do think that, we could stray into enforcement of and seeking.
it's not really, I'm not, in asking to discuss this, I'm not necessarily talking about enforcement. I'm talking about just taking an honest look at the situation. If you look at our zoning ordinance,
Well, that's
and it was, there was an article in the Post and an article in the Lily in Washington, D.C. about this sign, and in that article, it was stated that the local zoning people were doing nothing about it, although it was clearly, it was a violation, according to the information they had, it was a violation of the sign ordinance. So that's where we're sitting right now. So we just go, we don't care.
Well,
I don't think we make that statement. I think we just don't make any statement at all.
And I'm sorry, but it's, why do we have a sign ordinance? What's the point of a sign ordinance if you refuse to look at it when the situation comes up?
No.
Could we just review the sign ordinance, see what it
Well, I mean, I don't think that's helpful right now, because that gets into, if we're reviewing somebody's case and trying to make a determination, that would be the zoning administrator's job.
says?
And I don't think, I mean, then we'd have to be taking evidence of this, that, and the other.
My understanding of it is, and this was through an email, that actually the decision was made by the county attorney.
Okay.
The question apparently was asked, and the county attorney's determination was that it was a core political issue and that our zoning ordinance does not deal with that, or it was something confusing. He said it was, the only reference, and yes, we're going to get into our ordinance now. The only reference in our sign ordinance about signs, or about political signs, is a subset of the ordinance that states that they are allowed to be up for 90 days. His interpretation of it was that it did not specify sizes on political signs, but, and I've got a ton of information here, that is not a proper interpretation of the law. It's the subset had to do with the time that the signs could be up. It had nothing to do with the size of them. The state code specifies that they are controlled by the local zoning ordinance on temporary signs. Our temporary sign ordinance says 50 square feet is the maximum on a political sign.
Okay.
Or because it is a temporary sign.
Okay.
That's the law.
Okay. It seems, which way is on? Is that on? Yeah. It seems to me the initial question is, what's the procedure? If a complaint is filed, what happens then? Right? That's number one. And the answer is, Michelle Summers?
Well, I mean, we don't really know. I mean, what was this?
Why-
Hold on. What was this entered a couple days ago? When was this complaint entered?
I have no idea. I heard
Well,
that one was,
well, Bill, you got it.
yeah.
forwarded it within the last few days.
So, okay, so,
It probably is too soon when a complaint arrives that close to a meeting to assume that would be
so
taken up at this
you
meeting
can't
anyway.
necessarily assume that no action's being taken. And we're sort of secondhand guessing what the county attorney said, but that all seems like that's speculative. I'd much prefer to wait until we get something official presented to us to consider.
Why was
How
the,
do you all feel?
I agree with you, Alex, that the role that the Board of Zoning Appeals plays in this is to review appeals. And that until we have an appeal, we really aren't a part of the process. And I don't feel comfortable in overseeing and trying to discipline the zoning administrator or the county administrator in this until they're, I just don't feel that that is our job.
no one's talking about disciplining anyone.
Hold on. Let's not go back and forth. What I'm interested in is, do we want to continue to discuss this right now? Would we say not?
I agree with Chris. I mean, the issue isn't directly before us until there's an appeal of whatever decision is made.
So, I mean, I'd be looking to say this is enough for now. And then when it's officially brought to us, I'd be happy to discuss it. How about that?
I'd be happy to know what if there is a formal process and how a person who makes a complaint knows that the complaint
Yeah,
is
I agree with
received.
that too.
Oh, there's some. I don't know if I can really read it.
The question has not been issued as to whether any complaints were received.
I asked Michelle to place 170, 127 on the screen, questions of interpretation. It lays out very clearly.
Do you mind just reading it to us?
Can't read it from here.
Can you,
I can't see it.
Yeah, if you could
The
read it.
zoning
then.
administrator shall administer and interpret this chapter. Every question involving the interpretation of any provision of this chapter shall be presented to the zoning administrator for a decision. An appeal on any decision of the zoning administrator may be taken to the BZA as provided for in this article. The zoning violation or written order shall include the applicable appeal fee and reference to where additional information may be obtained regarding the filing of an appeal. That's it.
Yeah, so, I mean, based on that, I mean, again, I'd be happy to take this when it's brought before us.
Yeah, I think
I just don't want to spend, I mean, I think we're second guessing the whole thing, and I just don't see why we want to do that.
No, I think it's clear from what he just read that if we as members of the Board of Zoning Appeals get a complaint, that our job is to direct it to the proper authorities and they take action on it and send it back to us, or they don't.
And then I would just venture to say that if one of us is not satisfied with the way it's handled, they can go as a private citizen. 'Cause I just don't think you have the board taking this type of action that Ron may be alluding to.
What action have I proposed?
Well, you're wanting to do kind of an investigation into.
I just asked, I've asked a couple of questions and not received any answers, and I got one more question.
Wait, who are?
Why was the county attorney approached on the issue so that required him to render a decision if there was not some concern over the issue?
Okay, but is that just a rhetorical question? I mean,
No,
because-
it's a question. Why, we got an email that said
But-
that, the county attorney,
Who's we? You said
everybody.
We got an email.
I got one.
Yes,
That
it was-
that email.
if you
Okay,
read your emails every
Okay,
day,
yes,
you
I
know
saw
that.
one today, okay, yes.
Why was he approached? Apparently, somebody brought it up someplace, and so he was approached to render a decision, and the decision is to my
Okay.
investigation or looking into the matter or whatever is not correct.
You as a private citizen believe that, but I don't think that's us as a board. And I think there is a difference. There is
well-
a difference, and I think we've given you some leeway here. I think that's probably enough, really. Do you think so? Can we just advertise for this?
I think the first thing is to
Put it together?
put it together so that we know what we're advertising for, and the person who accepts the position knows what they're getting in for. And then,
Even if you could get a volunteer, they would need to know that.
yeah.
And we have to look at a salary range which may not be within the scope of our present budget. And therefore, if that is the case, then we're going to have to go to the Board of Supervisors and ask for an increase in that particular area in order to pay the individual.
Well, and since we're not really having meetings that often,
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, since we're not having meetings that often, our budget is not going to be used up. I don't think.
So far, it certainly hasn't.
No.
That would be another factor then. Okay, then we have to figure out how much money we still have left and then figure out, and that would be for just, the upcoming year or what remains of the upcoming year. And that we don't know. I mean, all of a sudden, we may suddenly have meetings every month. We might have hearings. We have no idea.
Okay, well, let's cross that bridge after we get the description written up. Is that okay? Okay. Is that enough on that subject?
I think so.
Okay. The next item is and this is old business because we passed on it last time because the applicant wasn't here. Is the applicant here for the neighborly enterprises? Would you be able to come forward, please? Yeah, that's fine. If you could just identify yourself and just tell us a little bit about what you're looking to do.
Sure. My name is George Neighbors. I'm the member of Neighborly Enterprises. I own a property in Amosville in Rappahannock Lakes, right on the border with Fauquier. It's a 2-bedroom cottage, and I put in an application in October, and then it was amended in April. And just looking to pre-COVID, obviously everything is done now, but since I've paid my money, we've gone this far, I'm here, to say, to potentially occasionally rent it out for weekends and that sort of thing. I don't have any immediate plans to do so, given the current conditions, obviously.
That's
And that's a 2-bedroom cottage?
It's a 2-bedroom cottage, I understand from previous that it would be rented as a 1-bedroom cottage, given the current septic system and regulations, as Michelle has explained to me. And that was the amended application put in April.
And you've had the septic checked out?
Yes, and that it's part of the application. You can see that
Right.
it was I think it's All-Star Septic did the work prior to my purchase in August of 2018.
Okay. Is it any questions?
Yeah, it seemed that when I read over this on the internet that there was some question about the water. Has that been inspected or?
There's no question about the water that I'm aware of.
No, there was some confusion on the septic, and that's what All-Star came in, to my understanding.
There was a question about
and straightened that out.
Correct. There was a question about the septic, and I accidentally included in my application a intent to do the work as opposed to the receipt showing the work had been done.
And the health department couldn't find it.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. And the health department couldn't find a record of the septic system. Were they able to, according to our notes here?
That's not my recollection, because I spoke with, I can pull it up in my email.
Oh, they obviously found it if you
That's
got
useful.
All-Star to clean it out.
Bear with me a moment, if you would, please. Because I spoke with, let me see who I speak with.
Is that an issue, whether it was found?
I spoke with Midge at the health department, and then with Chris at All Star, and sent the confirmation about the line being jetted, et cetera.
Is that satisfactory?
That was my understanding of
Yeah.
what the concern was, that there was not evidence that that work had been done, and therefore I amended the application per Michelle's recommendation and provided the documentation from All Star.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
Has the water been tested?
You talking about drinking water?
Yes.
I believe yes, I know we have tested the water.
You took a sample into the state and had it tested?
I think we
Or
did.
to allow?
We did a home test. I wasn't aware that that was a requirement or a request.
I just reviewed these things quickly on the internet, and I just remember reading something about the water, the potable water testing in those documents that you have on the screen there, and I just
I don't.
was wondering what that was all about.
I'm not aware of there being a question about the water. There was a question about the septic, as far as as far as I understand. I don't know that there was a question about the water.
There wasn't a
Therefore, I
question
haven't taken
about
any action to try to address that because I wasn't aware that it was an issue.
It was just mentioned in there, and I was just wondering what the issue was, because apparently there is none.
Apparently not. Okay. Is that enough?
I drink the water every day, so I hope there's nothing
you're
wrong with the water.
We're good. We're good. Is there any other?
If there were an issue, it would come up. I
Yeah.
just,
Okay. Is it any other question?
No.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing right now.
Okay.
Is it
Excuse
any?
me?
Excuse me?
We had the public hearing already. The public hearing was at our last meeting. It was opened and it was closed.
tabled.
And we cannot, without re-advertising, we cannot hold a second public hearing.
I mean, I don't think that's the case, really.
we tabled it, didn't we?
We tabled it.
No,
So all you have to do is have a motion to
No.
draw it from the table.
if you watch the tape,
Yeah.
you opened the public hearing, no one stood up. You closed the public hearing, then we voted, because the applicant was not here, to not take any action on the application, and we tabled it until this meeting.
That's how I remember it.
And I think, when I just reviewed it immediately before coming here, and my recollection was that I opened the hearing, but I didn't recognize that there was no one here to speak. But
I
anyway,
watched
look,
the tape.
it's okay, Ron, it's okay, really, it's okay. I guess I will not open the hearing. So is there a motion?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If you were to open the hearing, is there anyone here that would speak?
Well, I mean, we won't know that, I guess. I mean, I don't know, it's any point in asking. I mean, I will then endeavor the next time to make it so that people can hear, which I'm sure there's a way to do that. I thought it was fairly clear. Okay, if we had a public comment, people could talk.
Normally, we have a public comment,
We never have a public comment that I know of. Do we?
okay?
I mean,
The
I've never,
planning commission has a public comment.
yeah, I've never known of us to do that.
Okay.
Anyway, let's just say that we'll have a motion to do something. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move that the Neighbors Enterprises LLC tourist home, that the permit be accepted. Or approved.
Approved as.
Approved.
Is
I'll
there,
second the motion.
is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Everybody's aye. Okay, so that's unanimous. You're welcome. Okay, now the next item, I'm not sure how this happened because I thought the members were staggered, but actually all three of Ron, myself, and Chris, our terms actually expire early in October. So I've had a couple of discussions with Peggy Ralph, and she was going to advertise did
Yeah,
anybody
I saw an advertisement in the paper.
last week?
It's-
Okay.
It has been advertised, and the cutoff date is the 25th, which is
Right.
Friday.
Okay. So, and she did get letters from each of us, I understand, indicating an interest in serving again. But in talking with her, it did seem appropriate when these positions become available or open that the public be notified. So I don't know if that's going to generate candidates or not, but we're doing that as a matter of procedure and thinking that it's reasonable to do that. So any applications will come to the judge or come to the court, I guess, to Peggy Ralph. And then if there are any, they'll be forwarded to the judge along with our letters, and then, we'll just see what happens. But anyway, so that's an update on that. Is there any questions about that? Okay. So the last item was the addition by Ron about, and I'm thinking it's about the hay bales that have popped up that have the political messages on them. And I mean, my feeling on the issue is the appropriate thing is for such a thing to be reported to the zoning administrator, who would then determine if any action would be taken. So I think that's been done. And I'm not aware of any.
What has been done?
Hold on. I'm not aware of any appeals. I think she's been.
Well, there wouldn't be an appeal because there has never been any action.
Hey, Ron, if I could just finish, is that okay? So if there were any appeal, then we would be hearing the appeal. And she's not made any kind of ruling. So were she to have sent somebody a letter and saying your, whatever you want to call it, sign or statement or whatever is not appropriate or doesn't comply with the ordinance, then we might get an appeal from that person. So I would say as a general rule, we would be responding to appeals and applications, but not necessarily initiating the action ourselves. That's just my position. And I don't know if anybody else has a thought on that. And I think I know your thoughts, but I was just.
That's certainly my understanding of the role of the BZA, which is that the zoning administrator makes a determination and we either approve it or do.
I think your idea that Ron Makala as a private citizen could certainly, I think that Mr. Makala as a private citizen could explore the situation with the zoning administrator and the county administrator, but that is not our job, and that we don't have a decision to make on it until we are presented with an appeal.
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, we did have this sign down in Sperryville, and that was an appeal that was presented to us, and we did hear it. And, how that goes. So, but that was an official thing, and I think, I think that's what we should be doing, is responding to official things and not just, because otherwise we could pick certain issues and not others, and I don't know that that's really ultimately fair. So.
Well, it comes down to then that not to decide is to decide, and just for your awareness that apparently there are a number of these signs that are going to start appearing. So it's not going to be one sign. There's 2 signs already, and then there's going to be more before November 3rd.
Yeah, but we can't file the complaint. We can't both file the complaint and adjudicate it.
Well, actually, no, a board member could file a complaint. They would just have to recuse themselves from the voting on it or the discussion on it. But and like I said, I'm just.
Well, I mean,
I'm not. I'm sort of going pre-complaint, but what.
I'd like to ask a question about the email we received regarding the county attorney. It said in there that it was a question of time, and it seems that the interpretation was that because it made no mention of size, that the previous rule of 50 square feet was somehow preempted. Is that?
I mean, that's what Ron,
Well, that's what it seems
Was
to be. They're
talking
saying
about,
that because it wasn't addressed in terms of square footage when they put the 90 days thing on there, that somehow this makes the rest of the ordinance moot or something?
well, I think it's for a political sign, isn't that right?
Well, no, political
It's-
signs are saying it can be there for 90 days as a temporary
This-
sign, but
this
they're not-
issue has been to the
they didn't
Supreme
say that
Court.
overruled the
Okay,
size
but hold on,
requirement.
we're not hearing this issue, really.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
just wondering what
we're
the
not.
rules say.
Yeah.
About
Okay.
what the thing was that we received, what did that mean?
Yeah. I don't know. Is that, shall we adjourn?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Is there any discussion about that? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.